What's up, YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back with part 3 from our huge coin collection that we bought the other day. Today, we'll be focusing on the quarters, so let's jump into it. So as you can see, the quarters from a silver content perspective are going to be the overwhelming majority of the silver that was part of the purchase. I think from a pure coin perspective, we may actually have more nickels, but silver content, it's all right here is where it's at. So what we're going to be looking at today is I'm going to see how much of I don't actually have quarter books for silver. I'm probably going to go buy some, but I'm definitely going to try to pull as many of these that I could use to fill out books. And I'm looking for errors, I'm looking for varieties, and I'm just looking for really, really nice coins. We'll be looking for key dates, semi-key dates. I'm trying to think what else. That's probably it. So along the way, I'm going to be learning a little bit because I don't know a lot about old quarters. So as I do my research, I'll let you know what I learn. And hopefully you learn a thing or two as well. And I'm just really looking forward to getting through all this silver. I love playing with silver, and I hope you guys do too. So the first thing we're going to do is sort through all of this, which is mainly 1964s. We had a couple of rolls that said they were plain 1964s, and they're in here. But the first order of business is let's get all these wraps open and let's get them organized into piles. Then we'll start doing research on what we're looking for from a key date, key date, errors, varieties, etc. So what's going to be just a second for you will probably be an hour for me. Hold tight. So that took a very long time, but what you see in front of you is 900 and I believe 38 silver quarters. This has all been sorted by year, not by Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, simply because it would have been too big of a mess to try to keep track of. I did actually keep all the S's separate because they were all in a separate roll, or at least all the ones that they had put in a separate roll. We may find some additional San Franciscos as we go through this, but I'm not real hopeful. And these are in order from the lowest year, which was 41, up through the latest year, which was 54. So those are the only years we had some San Franciscos. And those, I think, are out of order too. We did end up with 17 SLQs, completely dateless. These are super thin, super slick, but still pretty good haul. 17 SLQs, I'll take it. But if we go around the board, we did have a single 32. We missed 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. We don't have a 38 in here, but we do have a bunch of 39s. And then all the way around the table, I believe we have the rest of the year. So starting over here, we have 40. Working our way up and around, 49s are here, the 50s come across the top, and the 60s come down the side. And as you can see, the lion's share of the quarters really happened between 60 really and 64, or maybe 61 and 64. This is a ton of 64s. This ended up being like almost $80 worth of 64s. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you over to the computer. I'm going to show you how I'm determining what I'm going to be looking for in here. I'm going to have to put a ton of these under the scope, or at least I believe I do. And hopefully we find some interesting things in here, a couple of DDOs or DDRs that could be interesting. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of scope time for me and a really quick wrap up for you. But if you've never seen 938 silver quarters all in one place, well, take it all in. It's actually pretty cool. Let's jump over to the computer. So what I wanted to do is bring you over here to the computer and show you how I'm making the list of coins that I'm going to be putting under the scope. I'm at PCGS. I've gone into the price guide and then drilled in here to the Washington quarters, obviously starting at 32 because that's where my first coin is. I've gone through this list and sort of cherry-picked the coins I'm interested in, mainly looking for varieties or any key dates that have substantial value to them. So, finding a 32 DDO in G4, I'm going to put that on there, not because, it's if I have a G4, I'm going to get excited. It's that if I have an MS60, I'm excited. Same thing. If we have a 32D, even in G4, it's worth $70. Now, that's a graded 1932D, and it does cost us a pretty good amount of money to get a coin graded. So, aftermarket and a raw coin, it will be less than that, but it's worth looking for if we find one. So I've gone through the list and just identified stuff that's high enough value that I have some interest in. A 34 Philly double die, right? That's one we're going to look for. I've gone through this entire list. You are welcome to do that on your own. But, anything that has substantial value, anything that's going to push a $4 or $5 coin to something that's more like 50 or 60 or 70 or $100 is interesting to me. Like, I really hope I find me a 1943 double die obverse. That'd make me really, really happy. I probably don't have one, but I'm going to look for it. So if you're new to coin roll hunting, or even just looking at coins in general, and I'm throwing out words like DDO or DDR, or double die obverse, RPM, which is repunch mint mark, I have updated my cheat sheet that's in the bottom of all my videos to include an abbreviation section with links to Wikipedia that will give you more definition around what those things are. And if you need pictures of what you're looking for, Variety Vista is also a great place to go. And they have all double dies and obverses and reverses and repunch mint marks and all that kind of good stuff for all types of coins. Obviously, we will be focused on Washington quarters. Here, this 1932 to 44 and 45 to 98. Anyway, that's how I'm doing my list. I will also keep that list. I've added a page that I'll be hunting here on that document, and that's what we're going to use. Now I'm going to get into these quarters and start getting them under the scope. So I have made my way through 1932 through 1949. So far, we have no varieties, no repunch mint marks, no over mint marks, nothing like that. But what I've been doing is going through and finding a Philly, a Denver, and a San Francisco of every year, the nicest ones out of the bunch that I can use to put in a book, which we'll go through at the end. But I did want to pull you guys in just to show you, I do have a couple of really nice older coins. Here's a 1941 that I thought was in really, really good shape. You can still see the rim. This is a Philly. This 48 actually turned out pretty nice. It's got a little more rim wear on it, but this is actually a S. This is a 1948S, which I thought came out really nice. This 39's got some gunk on it, but the detail on it's still quite good for a coin from 1939. I actually have a second one. I think this one's actually better. To me, this looks almost uncirculated. Possibly even getting into like a low mint state. I mean, you can still see striations in the hair. This is a beautiful 1939 Philly. So very happy with this one. And then we have two more. We're going backwards here, as you can see. This 35, I think, is in fantastic shape, considering what most of my 30s look like. Full rim intact, nice lettering. Really, really nice coin. It is a Philly. The back's not as nice, but that front looks really darn good. And then, surprisingly, the oldest one I have from the Washingtons, this 32. It has some wear. It's got some dings. But again, full rim. All the lettering except maybe you've got a little bit, it's almost like a grease strike there. A little worn there, even though the rim isn't. Beautiful reverse on this coin. Very, very happy with this one. But so far, these are the real stunners, I think, out of everything I've gone through. But like I said, no errors or varieties to report yet. So we are through the 50s, and my mat should look a little different. As I'm going through them, I'm just kind of stacking them around the outside of the mat. So we're done with the 30s, the 40s, and now the 50s. This line of quarters you see over here are a single PD and S of each year, assuming I had each of the three to fill out a book. So I'm actually, I don't have a book yet, but I'm doing pretty well on filling it up. What I have here in the middle is a couple of coins that I want to bring you guys in on, because some of them are just nice coins and some of them might actually be finds. So we're going to jump over to the computer and get a look at those under the scope. And then we are going to wrap up with all of the 60s. And as you can see, this mountain of 1964s is going to take forever to get through. But I understand there are a couple of DDOs and DDRs and things like that on the 1964. So we're going to have a look. Let's jump over to the computer. So the first coin I want to show you guys, and the scope's probably not the best way to do it, but it's the way we're going to do it, is this 1952S. And it's just a really nice looking coin. We have a full rim, we've got some hair detail. You can make out all of the lettering. Let me see if I can zoom this better. It is just a good looking coin, and there you can see the S. We've got a little bit of gunk here on the back, but all in all, of all the quarters I have, and knowing how slick many of them are, I just pulled this aside because it was a pretty darn looking coin. Pretty darn good looking coin. There we go, now I can talk. The next coin I want to show you guys is another 1952. This one also looks pretty good. We've got some ring dings here. You can see them. We've got a little bit of hair detail. And we're going to get a lot closer to this so you guys can see it. I need your opinion on this one. Let me zoom here. There we go. I believe we have a repunch mint mark here. But I would love your opinion on it, and if I can get the light just right, you can actually see the offshoot of a D up here, and it looks like we've got the tail feathers of 2 Ds here. So I think this is a repunched mint mark. Now granted, this quarter is not in great shape, but I would love to get your opinion on whether you think this is a repunched mint mark or just sort of a wonky looking quarter. Let me see if I can turn it and get a little more light on that. There we go. This is, you can see it a little better here. Anyway, it might be a stretch, but I wanted to pull it because it was a little suspect, and I thought I would get your opinion. The next coin we have is a 52S. We have some full rim here. We've actually lost a little bit of rim there, but you can see here it's a 1952. And this is a San Francisco. And I believe this may be an S over S variety. I think you can see right in here the S that's underneath it. And this is another one. I don't hunt a lot of quarters, and especially not quarters that are this old. So I really am truly just looking for a second opinion. And we'll pull up PCGS here in just a second and look at some of the value on some of these. So I'm going to keep an order and we'll go back through them. But I believe this is a 1952 S over S. The next coin is, like I started with the 52s, just a really nice 1954. At this level of magnification, it shows its wear, it shows its age. But at a bird's eye view of this thing, it actually looks really good. Let me just readjust it so you guys can get a sense for what this looks like a little bit better. So this is more what it looks like to the naked eye, and it just to find coins in the 40s and 50s that still have this much feather detail and this much rim around the outer part of the coin is actually a lot harder to find than you might think. So I pulled this aside because it's just a really nice quarter. Next, we're going to move on to some 57Ds that I pulled. Here's the 57, and we're going to zoom way in again. Fortunately, this does take a little bit of time for me to get right. So there we go. We're going to get to the back and look at this D mint mark. And this is one I'm going to have to explain, and I can show you guys on Variety Vista if you need to, but there is an OMM, or not an OMM, I'm sorry, a misplaced mint mark error on this one. And what it is where this D actually shows up somewhere else on the quarter. And you'll see this little hunk of metal here that looks like the upper corner of this D. And I can show you on PCGS what that looks like. And real quick, I think I have another 57 here. I do. That I also believe is a repunched mint mark. You can see this looks like it's like a D on a D or a repunch. So it could also be machine doubling, because if you look down here on the R and the D and the E, this is very characteristic of repunched mint mark, or I'm sorry, of machine doubling. So I don't know if I've got a repunch mint mark here or just something that is honestly machine doubled. And you can see here, yes, there's a little hunk of metal here, and maybe this is also considered a OMM, But let's pull up PCGS and have a look at that real quick. So here we are on the 1957D, and you'll notice there's actually no RPM, so that other one may just be machine doubled or also a misplaced mint mark. And I'm going to zoom in on this particular coin, and I think this one is the one that looks most like our coin. Oops. Actually, this one works too. And I'm going to zoom in, and you can actually, oh, where'd it go? You can actually see that little bit of a D right here. And I've also verified that this is where that D shows up on a lot of other coins. And we also have this characteristic almost grease strike here on the on this coin as well. So this is an area where I think that at least one of these two coins is what I'm saying that it is. And I'll go back to my coin here. So you see these striations. So that's why I tend to believe this is an OMM. The coin is not in great shape. I'd have to go back and try to verify like a grade on it. I'd say it's at least a good to very good. But I don't think this is extra fine or anything like that. We'll get a closer look at it when or a better look at it under the camera when I go back to my camera view. Okay, the last coin that we want to see here is a 1959 Denver. And I too believe that this coin may be, so here's our 59, this may be a repunched mint mark. And there we go. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. This too might just be a little bit of machine double. We're going to go back here to PCGS and just look at the value of a couple of these things. So I think I have a 59D RPM. I mean, I think at best we're at a G to very good. So they're saying that's an $8 coin. I mean, if it's stretched to an extra fine, it'd be worth 18. You know, it's something I would throw in a flip if you guys think I have what I have, just because it's a neat find, but I don't think it's going to command $8 online, maybe a couple, 5 or 6, maybe $1 in premium there. So the 57, they don't have anything graded lower than a 40. And I would really have to look at these coins to see if I could stretch that to a 30. If it reached a very good, I might try to sell it on eBay for $12 to $15 and see what I could get out of it, assuming you guys think I have what I think I have. What else did I have? A 52 S over S. Again, assuming I'm right. It's going to be one of these two, and let me see my 52. You know, both of those 52s I think could easily get past a very good designation. So I think we'd be looking at something in that, you know, $15 to $25 range, $20 to $25 range. I think we'd fall right in here, assuming I'm right. So please do let me know in the comments down below. And that was it for our finds. So we'll jump back over to the camera. I'll let you guys see those coins a little closer under the camera. And you guys can judge the grades for yourself. But maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I've looked at enough quarters that I just want things to be there that aren't really there. So very quickly, I just wanted to pan over these couple of coins. We'll start with the 52s. I think these actually all look pretty darn good. Let's see if we can flip them over so we can see the backs. The backs are showing a little bit more wear. We have this 54 that I said was just really nice, and I mean, you got a lot of hair detail on this one. I think this is a really pretty quarter, especially for being a 1954. Here were those 57s. Again, I think these look great. You get them under the scope and you see every little scratch, every little issue. But to the naked eye, they look pretty darn good. It's a nice looking 57. And then this 59. All pretty darn good looking coins. All right, so let's get on to the 60s. So wow, that was just a second for you guys and hours of my time going through all of these quarters. I'm zoomed in here because as you see across the back here, this was the 60s through the 64s. I do have two little columns here of the 64D and a little bit over here of the 64P that are just really, really nice, probably AU to BU, probably more AU level 64s that I'm going to just throw in a wrapper and hang on to for myself. But what you see over here is stuff we're going to get under the scope and take a look at. We've got a bunch of 62Ds. It has a repunch mint mark. I think most of them are just machine doubling or some kind of damage to the mint mark. But I'd like to throw them under there and get your opinion because I struggle with repunch mint marks and some of the double die reverse. When you look at some of the stuff online, to me it looks more like machine doubling than a double die. They're created very differently. But I think I might have a couple of good examples in here of things that are in fact DDRs. But we'll get them all under the scope and let you take a look. And don't worry, some of these will go really fast because they're just multiple examples of the same thing. Like I know on some of these, I have a bunch that just have a really kind of similar die crack throughout. So I figured I would show you that. We may not look at every example that I've pulled, but all of these represent examples of potential errors or varieties. So let's get over to the computer and get under that scope. So I figured I would start by showing off a couple of these 1962D. They might be RPMs. I'm not 100% sure. So I did pull up sort of errorref.com to show what various RPMs look like. And typically it's a very obvious doubling of the mint mark due to, and it'll explain it up here about how the punch comes in sideways or it gets mispositioned or so on and so forth. You can check that out over at errorref.com. They have lots of different examples and some are really, really kind of hard to see. You know, the rotated ones, you're looking for double serifs. When it's east and west, it's usually pretty easy to tell if it's really severe. But I've got a couple in here that might be really minor, kind of like, you know, this S or maybe even this one. Now, we'll be looking at Ds, but you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second when I get them under the scope. And I do want to bring you over here to Variety Vista. They show what the 1962D FS501 should look like. And as I said, if you look at this one, this looks very different than what we just looked at on errorref.com. This looks like almost a D right on top of another D. So let me take you over to the scope and show you a couple that I've pulled. 1962D. We've got, I think, 7 of these, and not all of them are good examples. Let me get this zoomed in real quick, or focused. That's the right word. So this is one that I think I pulled maybe to just show you what a lot of the mint marks of this year look like, especially for this age of coin. But you can kind of see a little bit of another serif in there. I think this is more just a standard mint mark. So that's your benchmark, in my opinion. Here is another one. You can clearly see that there's a D underneath this D. At the same time, I don't know if this is just kind of machine doubling where it punched the D and the die slipped and just scraped this D over slightly. So a lot of these, I do want to hear your opinions in the comments down below. So we'll call this one 1962D coin number 1. If you want to comment on that down below. Coin number 1. It's obviously 2 Ds, but it's very likely machine doubling. And I think that's going to be the case on most of these. But I wanted to show you guys just to see what I did find as I put all 900 and some odd of these coins under the scope. So here's another one. Again, you can clearly see a D and a D on top. It doesn't look like Variety Vista. It looks vaguely like one of the coins on errorref.com. And you see some other signs of some doubling here down in the other letters. I'm not going to look at every part of the coin, but a lot of these 62Ds that have this type of mint mark also have some slight, potentially machine doubling on some of the lettering. So that's coin number 2 for the 1962Ds. Here is coin number 3. This one I think looks a little bit more like Variety Vista. If you look here, you can see that we've got that sort of D here and a D on top of it. Same kind of thing here, but there's enough smushing in the D that this could just be machine doubling. Moving on to coin number 4. This is, again, I feel like we got a little bit of 2 serifs and that little bit of D here on the upper right-hand side of the coin. So that's coin number 5. If you believe any of those are repunchment marks or machine doubling, and you feel very confidently about it, please do leave me a comment. And this will be the last one, coin number 6. And again, we've got a D here, and you see some sliding, if you will, or potentially a repunchment mark. So that is our 1962 Ds. As you could see from the zoom in, most of these coins are not in great condition. I have one that's probably, you know, past very good, maybe even into the lower extra fine range. And when you put that 1962 D here, you know, if it is one, we might be looking at $10 or $15, definitely not to the $25 range. That's just a guess because there's no price on it below the XF. I think it's 40s and XF. Or extra fine. So let's move over to the 1964s, 64 Phillies. And as you can see from PCGS, there's a DDO and a whole bunch of DDRs to look for. And I had, I don't know what it was, 10, 12, 14 coins pulled aside that were a little suspicious. And since trying to put this part of the video together, I've gone through them. I'm not sure I really have anything of value here, but I did have a couple of oddities that I really wanted to point out. And some of the coins that I do have here, I would say easily fall into the extra fine category. Some are not quite that high, but it would have been really nice to have found something in that extra fine category or higher in any one of these, because it would have turned a, you know, a $4 or $5 coin into something that was, you know, $40 to maybe even $360, let's say here. But anyway, what I wanted to show you here was within the DDRs, there are 4. There's an 801, 802, 803, and 804. And they are all fairly represented by some type of what I always look at and think of as machine doubling first, because to me this looks very stair-stepped on all of these. But at the same time, it looks very much like it is a truly almost fully doubled letter, which is usually the hallmark of a double die reverse or a double die obverse, right? It's not just a machine doubling where you have a smear on the coin or something like that. So I wanted to pay close attention to just 2 of these, and I believe it was this one, 802 and 803, or it might be the 803 and 804. Let me look here real quick. It's the 803 and 804. So the 803, it's represented by medium spread on States with light spread on United, of America, quarter dollar, and very light on E pluribus unum. And what makes this very hard is when it says light spread, sometimes it's very hard to see, but you know, when you look here, you can see the double serif in the T and then the A. Those are kind of hallmark signs. There's a little bit of a double serif in the M, but it's very light and pretty hard to see. But one of the other characteristics that they point out is die scratches on the obverse. And then in this stage B set of photos, they call out that there is this die crack that kind of runs from the ribbon all the way across the base, through the bust, and well into the coin. And that's where I wanted to stop real quick and just show you why I really want this to be something, but it probably isn't. I have at least 3 really, pretty nice looking 1964 Philly quarters, and you can see that die crack, and it just runs right on through the bust and well into the I think they call that the field of this coin, right? I mean, that is a huge die crack. If you ever wonder what a die crack looks like, there's a really good example. But when we flip this guy over, there's no doubling on those T's, and I've looked at this a lot of different ways. Sometimes light doubling can just be like a spreading and a fattening of the letters. That's very hard for me to see and say with any level of certainty that this is a coin that is fatter than the others. I've compared this to a bunch of other 1964s, and it doesn't look really any different to me. Some of these did have some machine doubling down here in the word quarter. This one did not. But this one definitely had that giant die crack across the bottom. Here's another coin. Again, you can see just this is actually a pretty good looking coin. Yeah, I mean, it has some bag marks and scratches, but it looks really, really good. Again, you can see that die crack starting way outside of the bust, running completely through and right on through that ribbon. So this is another one where you would say, hey, that die crack, we should see some light doubling in these letters, and I just don't see it. And if you guys watch this back on a playback and you do, please let me know in the comments down below. But I don't see it in the T of states, the A of states. I don't see it in the M of America. It's just not there. I really want it to be because these are pretty nice quarters. It's just not there though. And I've got one more that I'll share with you, and then we'll move to the next one. So here we are again, that crack. This one goes well through. I mean, we're almost all the way up to the lettering. That's how far this crack goes through. And that I don't believe is a scratch because it's indicative on a lot of these coins. It is not a ring of death type error, and it doesn't look like it's a scratch that would have been made post mint. So let's flip that one over and have a look. Neither T, the A, there's just no doubling on this. And I really wish there was. Let's check down here on quarter. Not really. We've got a little bit of spreading on that U. But outside of that, I really just don't see anything. So that said, there is another DDR that was interesting, and it was this 804. And this 804 has a very strong spread, so this should jump out at you. And you can see in the pictures here, it's a fairly strong spread on all the letters. And this is where it gets a little interesting. I may have an 804 in my midst here, except what throws me off is that the doubling that you see in the word quarter and dollar is just really, really strong. And I don't have anything that looks quite like this. But in this one, it has that same die crack, but it ends short, right? It just barely gets outside the bust of the quarter. So with that in mind, we'll come back over and I'm going to show you, I'm not going to show you every single one of these, but you can see I've got that same die crack, but it just goes a little outside of the bust, and it does go all the way through the ribbon. When I flip it over, at least on some of them you will see, and it's not on all of them, so bear with me, I didn't put them in a pre-checked order. But you can see I don't have real strong doubling on all this. I have some, maybe, if you want to see it that way. We'll come up here to the word states, like we've got, you know, just a little bit of spread. But to me, it looks more like a machine double. And actually, this one's just really, really weak. There's a little bit on that N. There's a little bit in the top of that S, but that's about it. So that's one. I've got a couple more we'll look at. And I'm going to show you that die crack in all of them just so you can see. This is another one, just barely gets past the bust. And this one's a beautiful quarter. This is one that if it were a DDR, I would be super excited because this is a beautiful quarter. Here again on that N, you've got some spreading. I think there's a little bit of spread on that U. Let me come around here to states. I don't see a lot on states. Let's come down here to quarter. And here you can see like we're starting to get a little bit of that stair step inside of here and on the back side of the Q, here on the U, right? Here on the A, here on the R. So we've got some spreading, right? A little bit here on the T, but it's not super strong. And that is what makes me think this one doesn't quite qualify. So, but this is a beautiful, beautiful quarter. Let me know what you think in the comments down below on this particular one. This would have been that 804 DDR. And I've got one more that I'm going to show you, and then we'll move on to the 1964 Ds. because I think a lot, I might show you one more. I've got a couple more of these that have some pretty strong doubling, or machine doubling, and it's just none of these, which is weird because these have that really big die crack. You can see in the word dollar, just not a lot of spread on this. Nothing really up here in the States. It's just really strange. Was it these two? Let me look real quick. So it kind of jumps out at you. Yeah, like here's one where and to me this is very much like machine doubling, but you can see the stair step on the Q. Here, here, and here. On the U, here on the A, here in the R, even a little bit on the stem. The E has a little bit, maybe a little there on the R. This one even extends into the D. The O on top, maybe a little on this L. But I've got a couple that look like this too, that to me read much more like a machine doubling. Even in the word America, you can see here on the R, the E, the M. And to me, these look more like it's almost a smear than it is really doubling. Here on the E, here on the S, the O. So anyway, let me just show you the rest of this United. Anyway, this coin actually, to me, I would just love to know. There's not enough markers on this for me to call it something else. Actually, no, this one too had the marker that went all the way through it, or the die crack that went all the way through, and it didn't extend too far. So if we come back, just my doubling looks very different than this, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like I said, these are all coins that I'm just going to hang on to because they have enough issues with them that they might be something. And if I have a viewer that knows more than I do, I'd love to hear from you, because it's I'd love to know that I do have a $30 or $40 quarter here. So with that, I'm going to move on to the 1964 Denvers, and then we're going to wrap up this video. Now the 1964, it also has a DDO, a DDR, and an RPM, and I checked through what was probably, I don't know, $30, $40 worth of 1964Ds. And the only thing I really had was some RPMs or potential RPMs, like the 1960, I think it was the 62s I showed you. Here's what Variety Vista has. You know, we've got some ghosted Ds, we've got some D above D. This looks a little bit like a smeared D. This one's tough for me to see where the other D is. Maybe it's up here a little bit. And then this one's a little wonky because to me, if I saw this, I would immediately think like post-mint damage or something. But I'm going to show you, I've got about 10 or 12 of these. I'm going to throw them up here really, really fast. Some of these coins are in pretty nice condition. Some are not. So, you know, do I have any? I think I have anything up here in mint state? No. I have a couple again that could definitely get up here into that extra fine range. But with the repunch mint mark, they're not quite as much value here. So we're going to look at these again. You know, if you guys think I'm passing something up or think I have something here, I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. And you can tell from the quality of the back whether or not this would grade really highly or not. But, you know, this is one that, this is a really kind of wonky D. To me, I would want to say, just the way the metal is shaped on this, that this could potentially have been a repunch mint mark. I think the coin's in bad enough condition that it doesn't really matter. But, you know, again, RPM or just damage. Love to know. Let's call that one coin number 1, 64D number 1. 64D number 2, a little bit nicer coin. You can tell from the detail on the back. And this, you can clearly see sort of a D underneath this thing, kind of to the left and up. Is that machine doubling or not? And where the reason I think it's kind of machine doubling is you can see all the additional doubling in the word quarter down below. So, you know, I believe that's all machine doubling. If you guys think that's more of a DDR, love to hear your thoughts. All right, let's move on to quarter number 3. kind of like the one before it. Very similar. Quarter number 4. Huge spread on that, but again, when you look at quarter dollar, you can see, to me, that looks very much like machine doubling. And I think that goes all the way around on this quarter. No, it doesn't. It's just quarter dollar. Maybe a little bit up there on America. But if any of you guys think this is more indicative of like a DDR, let me know, because that means I've got a DDR on my hands. And like I've said before, I'm going to hang on to all of these. It's not like I'm going to pitch these back. Here's quarter number 5. Very much like the last one. We've got very similar doubling down there in the word quarter. Quarter number 6. This one's a little bit worn, a lot worn actually. Quarter number 7. Here is quarter number 8. And lastly, and this one's actually in really good shape, this is quarter number 9. This quarter looks really, really nice. And per the other ones, you do have a little bit of spreading down here on the word quarter. But I think that one actually looks pretty good. But I can also see how that was a regular D, and then like in the stamping process it slid, and that D got pushed over to the right and just left a smear. But I'm not the expert on RPMs, as I said with the 62. So let me know in your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. But I've got, whatever I just said, like 9 of these that I think are kind of interesting looking. All right, so let's just move on to a wrap-up. We're done going through all these quarters. It's time to just talk about what we had and get to the dimes in the next video. So there we are. We have gone through just over $120 worth of silver Washington quarters. Around the outside is all the 30s we did. It gets into the 40s, then the 50s, and in the back is all of the 60s, of course, with these being the 64 Denvers, those being all the 64 Phillies, which we had by far the most of. What I've done here in the middle is pulled, these are all of the kind of the nicer coins that I pulled out of there that if and when I get a book, I will be able to fill them. And we start all the way down in 32, and we've got a couple anywhere you see a space, we've got some years missing, but 32's here, 39 is here. We were missing that 38, and I believe a 33. Starting here at the 41, we only had one. I think it was we had the Philly, but not the Denver or the San Francisco. So I don't remember which years had San Franciscos and which ones don't. But anywhere that I had 3 stacked, it's where I had a Philly, a Denver, and a San Francisco. And you'll see I have a number of years with all 3. 44 was a tough year, just had the Philly. 39 was a tough year, I think also just having the Philly. 55's right here where we only had the Philly, but we did have 50 all the way through 59. And of course we had 60 through 64. So I can fill with this one purchase here nearly an entire book minus some of the San Franciscos. Because I can't remember which years, but I have a feeling there's a number of San Franciscos that we don't have. Over here on the side, these were all the potential finds that I kind of drilled in and showed you guys. I don't think I have any showstoppers here, nothing that's going to go to PCGS, nothing that's worth hundreds of dollars. If anything, you know, at worst I have a bunch of machine doubling. At best I might have a couple of DDRs that maybe increase the value of the coin, but I'm going to hang on to these and continue to give these a look. And if you guys saw anything on the videos, you know, that you could just know makes one of these a DDO, a DDR, an RPM, you let me know, because I've struggled with these quarters, especially just due to the age on some of them. It's made it very hard to determine what we have. And I ended up with a bunch like this. These are 64 Phillies and these are 64 Denvers that are just gorgeous, gorgeous coins. We're talking AU, BU type condition. I'm just going to pull one here for you guys to see. And yes, when you put it under the scope, it doesn't look quite as nice, but they still look pretty darn fantastic. But I've got, you know, maybe a $10 roll, maybe $15 worth of just beautiful, beautiful 1964s, both Philly and Denver. So with that said, this was a lot of fun, but it was an awful lot of work too. This was so much harder than I thought it was going to be, having to get in and research all the potential varieties on Washington quarters, and just the volume alone of having to put so many quarters under that scope and really scrutinize it. So apologies this video took so long to get out, but it was kind of an exciting video, and it was just fun to play with this much silver. So also really excited from this purchase to have all of these. I mean, they're dateless, which is unfortunate, but all of these standing Liberty quarters. This was a really cool part of this purchase for me as well. So nothing to really hunt here because they're so slick, but it was cool having them. Anyway, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Once I start editing it together, hopefully it's not too long. So if you made it here to the end of the video, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so now. Go on down below this video and click on that subscribe button. Then click on that little bell and select all so you get notified every time I release a new video. And while you're down there, go ahead and smash that like button and leave me a comment because I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, we'll back up one more time so you can see all of it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, which will likely be some of the dimes you could probably see in the background from this purchase. So we've got a lot of dimes to go through next. You guys take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.